You can stay up. Stay close to me. Stay.
Very good.
Yeah, because we're going to start this in just a minute. Just give me a chance to clean off the lens a little bit because it's a little fuzzy. There we go. That's better. So we'll start to see people show up in a minute, and now there you go. Yeah. Excellent, excellent. So whenever you're ready, boss, we're ready to roll.
As soon as this commercial goes on.
All right.
You know we got that comedy show.
Oh, yeah?
Let me know if you want to roll.
Oh, man, I hadn't done comedy in so long.
Man, it's a show Underwood, Bill Bell,
I know.
Oh.
I might check with the wife and see if she want to go.
Let me know.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, I know his little crazy end.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black. Woo, I had the week off last week. I appreciate y'all giving me a little love on the week off. But I'm going to tell you what I did. I went down to French Lick. I had a chance to connect with some of the party officials that have been doing this thing for a long time. And for me, this whole week was really all about how to learn to be a good Democrat. I'm going to make sure I get some glare off of there. There we go. That's a little better. And I spent hours on the porch in French Lick, talking to people who had been in the game, like Regina Moore out of Monroe County and all the work that they've put in down there as women. And all of, Russ Sipes and all the people who have been in this fight. I mean, like Miss Cordelia. Miss Cordelia's been around a long time. She is the vice chair of the state party, and she is a powerful voice in the party. And I'm telling you, if you ever really want to understand what it is to be in Indiana politics and how to move our state forward, there are a lot of good minds out there. It doesn't always work out the way we want it to, obviously, because 45 is orange. We didn't want an orange 45, but we got one anyway. But seriously, French Lick was great. So I was off, and I thank you guys for giving me that week to go learn and hone my chops. There's something I want to share with you guys about this radio show. I do promote a lot of what the state party is working on. I tell you about all of the different county parties and some of the events that they have going on. And I share with you as much information as I possibly can. But the great thing about this show is this is a show that I pitched to the owner of RadioNext.TV, Harold Bell. And this is a show that together, collectively, we put together. So if for some reason the deputy chair position that I hold right now with the state party were to leave, I still have this show. If for some reason the vice president role I have with Stonewall were to leave, or I'd be voted out, or I'm no longer a board member, this show would still exist. And the point of this show is to offer candidates and elected officials an opportunity to share why they are in this business. Why are they in the business of caring about constituents? Okay? So what I'm telling you is this show is not affiliated with the state party. It is not affiliated with Stonewall. But the good thing about this is that I can have anyone on the show that I want because it's mine. It's my show. And it's something that I work for. And one of the things we have to remember as Democrats, there is a primary for a reason. There's a primary season for a reason. If you feel that you really want to run for office and you feel like your message is solid, there's a platform that we don't mind sharing. Now, I'll be honest with you, if you're going against an incumbent, be prepared for the backlash that's going to come from that. If we already have somebody in a seat and they're doing a relatively good job, be prepared. But I'm not going to ever discourage you from running. But I am not, in a primary season, especially when it's an open seat, I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to come and share their story. And if they're no good, if they're not very smart, you're going to see it. And don't you want to know that? Don't you? Or if they're brilliant, don't you want to know that? So, I know some folks have opinions about who I bring on the show or why I bring them on the show or giving people platforms. But the bottom line is if the seat is open and there's not a Democrat in the seat, I'm going to give them an opportunity. Because that's why I made sure the show was separate from the state party or any other organization that I work with. The only person that can tell me who or who cannot come on this show is Harold Bell. He's the owner of the station, and he's pretty much giving me creative license. This isn't a look at me how big and bad I am. This is a please understand. This is about giving everybody an opportunity. You can support who you want to support, how you want to support them, but this is about giving everybody an opportunity. The other thing we must remember, though, when you come on Indiana's Own Turn Left, it's got to be positive. There will be no attacking. There will be no negativity. And thus far, of all the candidates that I've had come on, J.D. Ford, Liz Watson, Mike Hartley, none of them have been rude. None of them have been negative. None of them have been anything but positive energy explaining why they want to run for office. So I wanted to get that out because I don't want there to be confusion about what Turn Left is and who is feeding this information. I ask people to come on the show. They have every right to say no. But I also tell them this is a place for you to come and share your information. All right, before I go and I introduce my special guest that I have on the side over here, I want to talk a little bit about, real quick, and Dan, I'm going to bring you in when I introduce you. Connie Lawson. You guys know who she is, right? She's your Secretary of State. And yesterday, she sat in front of an interim study committee, a summer committee. So you have your General Assembly, which is in the wintertime generally, between January and April or January and March, depending on if it's a long or short session. And they debate bills and things like that. But then they also have summer study sessions. And Connie Lawson spoke in front of the interim study committee on elections yesterday afternoon, and I was shocked when I read what she said because I wasn't sure if she said it because someone told her to say it or if she was just like really dumbfounded in what she was saying. I really wasn't sure, but she actually says that there is no correlation between early vote centers, the number of early vote centers in counties, and voter turnout. Now, I know that I enjoy a cocktail on occasion, but if I'm going to go speak in front of the interim study committee on elections, I make sure I don't have a cocktail before I go speak because I want to make sure that I'm coherent and I'm making sense. So Connie Lawson actually believes that it is okay for a Hamilton County with a population of, a third of what Marion County has can have 3 vote stations or 3 early vote locations. But Indianapolis with over 700,000 registered voters can only have 1 early polling place. Now, Mara Hoff, the Republican in Lawrence Township, and I've posted who she is the lone Democrat on the Marion County Election Board who keeps voting against us not getting extra satellite polling places. Please remember her name, Mara Hoff. She's able to do these things via anonymity, and she makes her votes, by proxy. But we need to contact her because she needs to explain why she thinks it's okay for us not to have early polling places. But Connie Lawson is the Secretary of State. She represents everybody in the state, and she doesn't believe that 700,000 registered voters should have more than 1 satellite location, but the donut counties can have them. Now, with a fraction of the population. Now, you can go into the Democrat makeup and the Republican makeup or the racial makeup. Let's just throw all that out the window. Let's just talk about equal access between all of the counties. Forget about who lives where, but the fact that there's 700,000 people in Marion County, why can't they have the same equal access that Hamilton County has, Boone County has, Johnson County, Hancock, Hendricks? Why can't they have the same equal access? Why is it that this city with the economic hub of our state, people, the economic hub of our state, and she believes that there is no correlation. Now, I don't know if y'all know me, but once I get ticked off, I do stuff like run for office. I'm not saying I'm running for Secretary of State yet. I'm just saying, Connie, come on, girl. You got to know that there is a correlation. You got to know when Hamilton County opened up extra voting places, their turnout went up 15%. You know this because you got these numbers. You're Secretary of State. You know this. So stop playing. Stop pretending. You know, we already know about you purging over 80,000 people off of Marion County rolls. We know these things. So stop playing. But we're going to get somebody who's qualified, somebody who wants to put in the work and connect with Hoosiers in all 92 counties to run for Secretary of State. Because that seat looks like we need a new person in there that understands the impact and the magnitude of equal access to voting places. I don't care who lives where. I don't care if everybody in Marion County is green and everybody in Hamilton County is purple. Equal access. If they have a polling place per 100,000 registered voters, then Marion County should have a early polling place for every 100,000 voters. That would be 7. I think we can work this out. So, and our mayor has already said that he would allot the money to open up the centers. So, Connie Lawson, I'm going to work with John Zodi. We're going to find somebody to run against you and give you hell because you're not looking out for the voters of our state. You're not looking out for us, and we need someone who's going to look out for us. You never know. You never know who we'll find, but we're going to look for somebody. All right, that's my rant for today. Love French Lick. Connie Lawson, we're going to give her to her. Anyway, listen, everybody, I'm excited. So a couple weeks ago, I had a candidate on from the 9th District. Now I got another candidate on. 9th District is hot because they're going to get rid of that dude, the carpetbagger guy. And even if whoever comes out, they're going to join forces and they're going to work together to get rid of that dude because that's what we got to do. I want to introduce everyone to Dan Canon. He's a candidate in the 9th District. I had a chance to hang out with him over the weekend. We had talked, but this is going to be the first time we really get a chance to I want people to be able to see your face, so I want to make sure, yeah, come on in here, man. Introduce yourself to the people and tell them why you're running for office.
Well, hi, folks. I am Dan Canon. I'm a civil rights lawyer from New Albany, and I have been here proudly in the 9th District for more than 30 years.
Okay.
I was born in Illinois and then quickly moved over here when I was 3 years old.
Okay.
And was raised by a single mom from the time I was 3, starting off in Henryville, and then to Scottsburg, and then to New Albany, where I still have a flag planted. And, you know, my mom was an amazingly hard worker, and serves as, you know, people ask you all the time, why are you running for office? What do you ask me? You know, why? And my mom has a lot to do with that.
Okay.
I saw her work harder than I've ever seen any human being work. And working, you know, if it wasn't enough to work 40 hours a week, she'd work 60. If it wasn't enough to work 2 jobs, she'd work 3. And always managed to keep food on the table and keep me safe, make sure I was well read and all that stuff. And then I repaid all that hard work when I was 17 by dropping out of high school.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So,
okay. Well, that wasn't the wisest of decisions, but I'm dealing with an 18-year-old right now, so I understand. I understand.
Yeah, she wasn't very happy with me.
Okay.
But,
okay.
Did manage to get myself together. I got my GED.
Okay.
And I put myself through college. And because I wasn't going to ask her to pay for it at that point in time, you know, she wasn't happy with it. And then I, without ever having met a lawyer probably ever in my life, or had a conversation with a lawyer, I don't think, because I grew up in a way that, you know, I grew up working class mom, and that professional class was sort of unattainable to me.
It was somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that lawyers were the kind of people that you talk to.
Yeah.
Right? You know, you pick up the phone, call a lawyer, you're going to get a $1,000 bill, right?
So they were out of your reach.
It was something totally foreign to me when I went into law school, and that culture was totally, you know, unknown. But I managed to slog through it and graduated near the top of my class. And when I got out, I wanted to go to work for people in my community.
Okay.
My friends, my neighbors, my family, people that didn't have access to the justice system, people that didn't have access to the professional class, people that didn't have access to lawyers. And so that's what I did, representing individuals, doing civil rights cases, representing workers against big business, representing veterans against the federal government, senior citizens against neglectful nursing homes, Teachers against school systems, always people against power, always the Davids of the world against the Goliaths of the world. What was
I needed you on my campaign last year then, man.
Yeah. Well, you were definitely the David of that race. You were definitely the David of that race. So, having gone through all that, having lived through, what my mother went through, seeing her example, seeing how hard she worked, oftentimes for half the pay of male counterparts that only did half the work, right? But she was still always able to sort of dig down deep and do more and step up and do more. And then after the elections in 2016, I started asking myself, what else can I do for my community? I've been here, I've been slugging it out, I've been fighting for people. What else can I do? And I think that's something that a lot of people ask themselves in 2016. People that weren't that active before, and I've met them all over the district, people that weren't that active before are now all of a sudden interested in politics. And people that were politically active before are forming groups. They're getting organized, and they're getting more galvanized. They're getting excited about things. And I think now is our time. And so when I looked at the situation, and I see that, with the people that we've elected in office, American democracy is genuinely in crisis. In times of crisis, I was taught to step up and do more, and that's what I'm doing.
Well, that is an awesome reason to run for office. I like your story about looking out for the little guy, because it seems like the perception out there in the world is that as politicians, first of all, a lot of people don't even like to call themselves politicians. It's almost like, calling them a curse word, right? I own it. I love thinking that I'm a politician. I'm just a politician that ain't won office yet, right? I love owning that. And I like the fact that you're coming here saying, I want to run for office, which means you want to be a politician and you want to serve the community based on the information and the things that you have already done.
Well, I think breaking down that stigma is very important. I mean, as a first-time candidate, I've talked to a lot of people in the district, all over the place, that I thought, to my untrained eye, would make great candidates. People that would do great as elected officials. And you talk to them about that. So, well, have you ever thought of running for office? Why don't you do that? Why don't you, run for city council? Why don't you run for the seat that nobody's ever run for in the Democratic Party for the last 20 years?
Right.
And they're like, oh no, only horrible people get into politics.
Right.
And that sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It does. And that because the good people stay out. I used to tell some people, I understand why smart people don't go into politics. I do. I understand why because smart people look at things from all sides and they go, well, how much of my family do I want to give up? How much, so you got to be a little off. I just haven't been clinically diagnosed yet. I refuse to be.
I'll tell you, being in the trenches of this thing, in a race that's as big as the 9th District, you get to really see how the sausage is made.
That's huge. You're going for a congressional seat. People gave me grief for a local house seat in the state house. That's so big, Dana. No. Your first time out, you're going for a congressional seat against somebody, with unlimited resources to fight you. What do you feel when you think about running in such a race like that?
What do I feel?
Yes. I know what you think.
Yeah.
I want to know what you feel.
Yeah, that changes every hour of every day, right?
Okay.
Getting into it, you really see, as you said, you got to be a little bit off to get into this stuff and do it. For a race this size, what has struck me is how totally inaccessible these kind of races are, and are becoming more and more. I think
Citizens United,
especially post Citizens United world, these races are becoming really, really inaccessible for people who work full time, right? For people who aren't independently wealthy, or for people who just simply aren't sociopaths, right? It's tough to,
He's right.
If we could, what I spend most of my time doing is making phone calls and asking people for money.
Yeah.
What an absurd way to do politics.
Yeah.
That's the absurdity that American politics has become. Instead of being out there and talking to constituents all the time, which is what we should be doing, and out and trying to talk to real people about real problems and coming up with real solutions from right here in Indiana, we end up being on the phone. a lot more than we probably should, asking people for money.
Yeah.
If you're independently wealthy, you don't have that problem.
Yeah.
But then if you're independently wealthy, you also probably don't have much of a sense of the real problems that real Hoosiers face. Yeah.
Absolutely. I had a gentleman who I worked with in Victory, which is an LGBT organization that promotes candidates. He reached out to me from New York asking for a donation.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would love to, but I got to take care of my Indiana folks first. My money is limited. So, I would love to help out somebody in New York, but I gotta keep my resources here because Indiana's just way too important. There's too many things. So tell me, what you're hearing when you are talking to constituents? What are they telling you need to run on?
So everybody's fired up about healthcare, of course, and that's a big deal. And we think that what we're seeing more and more, even from the sort of what we call mainstream or establishment Democrats that we even necessarily identify as progressives, right? More of them are jumping on the bandwagon that single payer is the way to go, and that's the direction we're going. Everybody agrees that we need to, live in it. I mean, I think even everybody on both sides of the aisle agrees that we need to live in an America where people are not going bankrupt and dying because they can't pay medical bills. So that's okay. And that's something that it doesn't matter who you talk to, any place in the district. It's a very diverse district.
Right.
But no matter who you talk to, everybody's been affected by that in one way, shape, or form. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Infrastructure is a big thing
Sure
in some
it
parts
is.
of the district, of course. Jobs are always a big thing.
Absolutely.
The environment is very, very big.
Good.
So
Good,
people are actually concerned about the environment, and that tends to be a bipartisan issue.
Good. And that's one of the things that I found out when I was knocking on my 2-to-1 Republican district was that there were commonalities between the parties. So everyone has to define how their campaign is going to go. I know I started out one way, but once I started knocking on doors and making phone calls and talking to the constituents, everything that I thought I was going to run on changed because I wanted to represent the people. And these are the things that they are concerned with. Now, once I get elected, I can work on some of the other things that may not necessarily impact my community directly, but maybe impact another region in the state. But I needed to make sure that the folks that were voting for me knew that I understood. I know what your concerns are, and most times it's really very local. They really want someone that understands, the plight that they are in, and all the noise at the top. It's a lot of noise up there.
Well, somebody who will listen.
How are you going to cut through all that noise?
Well, somebody who will listen to them. We're going to knock a lot of doors, and we're going to get in a lot of living rooms, and we're going to tell people, look, we care about you, and we're listening to you. I think that's so important, and even for people that even for people that aren't predisposed to agreeing with you on policies, even people that outright troll you, right, on Facebook, on Twitter, something like that, you reach back out to those people. And I've been surprised at the response. Almost, 9 times out of 10, let's say, with trolls, reach back out to them and say, look, all right, I appreciate your opinion on this, but here's what I think. And very often, you'll have people shoot back, well, look, I still disagree with you, and maybe I even want to murder you, but, I've never had a candidate talk to me before. I've never had a politician interact with me like I'm a real human being. That means something. And
as we as voters, we need to hold our elected officials accountable. We need, and that's, I think that's the biggest thing is that we feel like we can't make a change. We can't facilitate change. Right, or we don't have the power to facilitate change. And I tell people all the time, there are more of us than there are them, and we can facilitate change.
Yeah.
So as you're out here knocking on doors and raising money, you got to raise money. It is what it is. What are things about the campaign that you love the most?
Oh, everything that's not calling people and asking for money. And even that's kind of fun, too. I've been able to catch up with friends that I haven't talked to for a long time, but then you catch up with them and you're like, oh, yeah, I just called you to ask you for money. Yeah, so that's, but everything else, being around the district, it's such you never know. Like I said, I've been here for more than 30 years, and there's so much cool stuff going on in my backyard. And also, problems that I never would have known about going on.
Well, what things that you did not know about that you've learned about since you've talked to your constituents?
So, for example, last week I was in Charlestown, and I walked the first subdivision. It's a subdivision that's been there, small family homes that's been there for at least 50 years. Because I met people that have lived there for 50 years, right? And they have, and if you walk through that subdivision, it looks like a zombie movie. It looks like The Walking Dead. So you have one house that is boarded up and there's a bunch of trash in the yard, and then the next house looks nice and pristine and perfect, and then 2 more houses, you got them all boarded up and they look crazy and shut down. And the city's not doing anything about it because the city is actively causing it to happen. They're trying to sell that subdivision out to a developer that's going to put in a bunch of $200,000 and $300,000 and $400,000 homes in Charlestown where people can't afford. I mean, these people that are living there can't afford to buy $300,000 or $400,000 homes. So what they're doing is coming out there and they're trumping up these code violations, like, oh, well, your shingles are a little bit off, so here's a code violation, and they write them these extravagantly high tickets, and they pile them one on top of the other. They say, all right, well, you can either pay all these fines, or we'll give you $10,000 and you can just sell your house and vacate. And if people are vacating
for $10,000.
Now, this is my backyard, right? This is in my backyard, Charlestown. I live in New Albany. Wow. This is right down the road. And if I hadn't been on this campaign,
you would have never known about it.
Would never known about it.
And that's what's so scary is because these are elected officials in Charlestown.
You see the ugly side of government
that are letting these things happen. Oh,
you see the ugly side of government.
Oh, please ask me about redlining one day. I mean, there is definitely an ugly side of politics because there are people who want to control everything or could have the power to control everything because there's so much money involved, right? The fact that they're trying to, this developer is like probably throwing so much crazy money at these officials, at these lobbyists, at these elected officials who's supposed to be working for the people, but because they're getting them kickbacks, they're like, oh, I'm going to sell my people out. They will sell you out. I mean, SB 309, everybody knows I get tired. They probably get tired of me talking about the solar panel bill. But that's one of those, things where you got 4 super polluters in a 30-mile radius of Evansville, and you got a senator writing a bill saying, no, we're not going to go to renewable energy. What the heck? So what are some plans that you have? How would you even address something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that is addressed primarily at the local level for sure. But look, what's the role of the federal government? If local governments are violent, we do this is what we do in federal courts. This is civil rights litigation in a nutshell. It's the history of the Ku Klux Klan Act, right? It's the local governments are not doing what they need to do to protect the people. And so federal government has got a role to play in that, to step in to protect people, to protect individual rights, to protect people's homes, to protect people's lives, right?
Right.
To protect their individual rights and liberties. And if the federal government is not going to do that, we need to flush those guys that are in the federal government and replace them
with no Charmin.
Yeah. Exactly.
Flush them with no Charmin. Okay. So,
do you think this guy that's currently in office, do you think he cares about what's going on with people in Charlestown?
No.
I mean, do you think that
he doesn't care about things in the people in Indiana, let alone Charlestown?
Well, that's right. And why should he? Because the only lesson he learned from 2016 is that he can buy that seat.
He can buy that seat.
Yeah, and that's the lesson that he learned. And what does he know about real problems that real people have ever faced? I mean, has this guy ever lived paycheck to paycheck? Mm-hmm. Has he ever had to pay for his own health insurance?
Right.
Has he ever had to worry about money for any reason at all?
Has he needed health insurance?
Has he needed health insurance?
Health insurance are for people who can't more than likely pay whatever that procedure is at the time. They don't have cash on hand to pay for medical bills. So the insurance is you pay premiums so that when you need money, it's there. Most wealthy people really don't need insurance.
Right. I'm sure he could pay his medical bills outright.
He can pay them outright.
Yeah.
And that's what is so.
How can you possibly deal with real problems faced by real people in Indiana when you've never lived here?
I don't understand it. I don't understand why they
face those real problems.
I don't understand why people in the 9th District were comfortable with this.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you hearing when you're knocking on the door? I mean, I know you have to knock on some of those folks that voted are in the 9th District. What are they telling you about why they did it?
Check with me in 6 months, and I'll have a better.
All right.
I'll have a better assessment.
He want to come back.
But I'll tell you, I'll come back whenever you want me to. But I will tell you that you look at the race from 2016, and Shelley did 14 points better than Trey, right? And Trey was riding on Trump's coattails.
Yes.
He's not going to have that benefit this time.
No, he's not.
Trump's going to be working against him, as a matter of fact. But we can't depend on that.
No, we can't. We got to tell him who we are.
Yeah, and that's very important. We have to go and we have to tell people we care about them. Not only that we care about them, we're taking your viewpoints into account, and we're out there and we're listening. But we also have a way forward for you. We have a positive agenda. We have things that we can genuinely offer you. And I think that's really, really important. I mean, you look at the success of the Trump campaign, look at the success of the Sanders campaign, right? Both of those guys, regardless of what you think about their individual merits or what you think about those campaigns or how despicable you think either one of them are, they were successful because I think, if you look at the commonalities, what do they have in common? Not much. But they were offering people a path. Right? They said, we've got a direction we're going to go in. We're going to head this direction. Sanders said, let's go forward. Tuition-free public education, universal health care, and all this stuff. And people were like, wow, that's revolutionary. And Trump said, let's go backwards. Right? But we've got a direction. We're going to go backwards. We're going to take us back all the way back to the Stone Age. And but by God, people, we are driving this ship a direction one way or the other. And I think that people respond to that. I mean,
they do.
Say, look, we've got revolutionary ideas, and let's go there together.
Okay, so I remember when I was working on my campaign, there was one piece of legislation that I knew that I wanted to work on as soon as I got elected. What is that one piece of legislation that you want to work on if you're elected and you make it all the way you get past the primary, because you got a tough primary? Ooh, you got a tough primary. There's some good candidates running, and that means that the 9th district is producing good people. That's all I can tell you. You got good people. You got a tough race. You win the primary. You beat out Tennessee. I'm not saying his name no more. What is the first piece of legislation when you get to Congress that you want to work on?
Yeah. Everybody's excited about health care. I am particularly excited in terms of something that I think that, two things. Can I say two things?
Yeah, you can say yes.
Two things.
You tell me who you are.
Two things that I think we can really accomplish.
Okay.
Right? Paid family medical leave. Is one thing. That's a big deal. They're doing it in New York, right? New York in 2018, I think, is going to go to 12 weeks.
Wow.
Family medical leave.
Okay.
So there's no reason why we can't have that in the heartland. There's no reason why we can't have that nationwide. I haven't talked to anybody in the district that doesn't know, that doesn't have kids or grandkids that have been chased up to New York or chased to California or something like that. We need to give people incentives to raise young families here.
Absolutely.
And to stay here.
Brain drain, baby.
Yeah. And the other one is the decriminalization of marijuana.
Okay. Whoa, not you. Oh, you getting bold now. He's getting bold now. But now, if you had said that, maybe 2 months ago, me saying you being bold, it would have been true. But unfortunately, Republicans are getting on the liberal train, and they're like, well, maybe we should consider marijuana.
Oh gosh, because if you're not willing to raise taxes on the super wealthy,
not at all.
Not willing. If your whole economic plan for the future of the country is to cut taxes and cut taxes and cut taxes, well, you got to raise revenue from someplace. And sooner or later, the working class figures out that you're taxing them behind their back with gas taxes and cigarette
45
taxes
new taxes
and
that went into
tolls
effect
on the roads.
Yes.
Yeah, right. You know what I'm talking about.
45
that kind of
in
stuff.
July. Cost of living in Indiana went up on July 1st. Y'all know that, right? But your wages didn't.
People, no, of course not. Of course not. How could we spend that kind of money? How could we invest in our workers?
Yeah. So that's what so when you said paid family medical leave in a state that doesn't want workers to be able to compete for pay, they want to bust up unions, they want to keep the minimum wage at $4.22 an hour. How are you going to work to get, somebody has a baby, because, family values and all. You still have somebody that has a baby. You want to give her 12 weeks of paid medical leave? How are you going to get something like that in Indiana?
Yeah.
For Indiana.
So we get enough people on board with it, and you. So here's one thing that I've noticed about a broad base of social issues, right? When you're tackling social problems, is that we have a tendency to, and the Republicans have been very, very good about this messaging, which is to say we're going to save a couple of bucks right now, like today we're going to save a little bit of money, right? And what they don't tell you is that we're spending a whole lot more on the back end, right? Because we saved those couple of bucks. I think paid family medical leave is one of those examples.
I agree.
The drug war is one of those examples, right?
I agree.
So, it's a matter of convincing enough people that, look, our families are worth investing in. And as you said before, our workers are worth investing
Absolutely.
in. And it's not, I would not think that from the people that I've talked to in Indiana that would be all that hard of a sell. It's a question of how we do our messaging and how we present it.
Well,
right? So we invest in our families up front and say, all right, you get to have a couple of weeks, before you got to go back to work to spend with your newborn baby, right?
Men and women.
Men and women. Men and women. And so that is going to pay dividends for us on the back end.
Absolutely, but you
got
got these
more productive workforce.
Oh my God! But you got, I'm devil's advocate. You got these fat cats that own these businesses, and they're gonna be like, "How's the government gonna tell me how to run my business? Why I gotta listen to you? I mean, I don't even want to up the minimum wage. I mean, that's a lot of navigation, you know. And I know you said that you think it's something that we can get done, but there's a lot of fat cats greasing a lot of, you know, elected officials saying
it's the perennial problem.
Absolutely,
it's the perennial problem with everything. So we get, but it doesn't mean we don't try.
Yeah, absolutely,
we don't get in there and try to bust them up.
We try.
I
like that.
That's what we got to do.
I want to switch topics for just a little bit. I know we've talked about, the family and the worker and the civil rights aspect of those things. I want to talk about education a little bit with you. Education, what I found, no matter how many doors I knocked on, was something that everybody is concerned about, whether they had kids, school-age kids or not. Talk to me, and how are you going to work with Betsy DeVos when you get elected?
I don't know if there's a way to work with Betsy DeVos. I think what we got to do is hold Betsy DeVos accountable, and I think that needs to be the chief job for the remainder of this, the term of this disaster of an executive branch, is to make sure that we hold those people accountable and that we don't lose more than what we've already lost at this point.
Because they're cutting
everything. Then we can start forging a path forward. I mean, our messaging has to be forward thinking. But yeah, I mean, we see, the EPA is another fine example. People want to talk about the Paris Accords, and you're all up in arms about the Paris Accords and what they're, what's going to happen if we're not in this treaty or not in that treaty. And like, folks, there is no EPA, right? Functionally speaking, right now, you've got people in charge of the EPA who think that there should be no EPA.
Right. They don't believe in climate change, as Houston is underwater.
Right, people in charge of the federal government who don't think there should be a federal government at all.
Right.
So those people need to be held accountable.
Right.
Are we going to be able to convince them that voucher programs nationwide are stupid? No, I don't think we're going to be able to convince Betsy DeVos.
Because they're making too much money off of it.
I don't think we're going to be able to convince Betsy DeVos or anybody in that administration of that. But we can hold them accountable.
Oh my goodness! That's a pet peeve of mine, is that people are in places that they have no experience and they're running. And this woman is in charge of every student in the country and really has no idea how to educate people. And you mentioned the EPA. The Sierra Club, they educated me a couple of weeks ago, and they talked about the 22 super polluters in the country and 50 states. We got 50 states, right? 22. That's only half. That's less than half the states. But 4 of those super polluters are right here in southern Indiana.
Oh, fantastic.
Right? Yeah. There's 4 of them down by in 30-mile radius of Evansville. Yep. Here we have companies that are willingly, right, poisoning residents of Evansville, and then don't want to give them health insurance.
Yeah.
The irony.
Sellersburg, right down where it's.
Yes.
I mean, that's kids are drinking poison out of the tap in Sellersburg, and that's one of those things you talk about broad-based, bipartisan appeal issue. You start from, all right, here's the basic proposition. We don't think our kids should be drinking poison out of the tap. Right? We want to have clean air to breathe. We want to have clean soil to grow our food in. Who's going to disagree with you about that? And now let's work backwards to find some solutions.
And the killer part is like, excuse me, rich people, you may be able to buy filtered water. But and you might, if you have enough money, you might actually go get you an oxygen tank. But you got to breathe the same air that everybody else is out here breathing. The idea that it's okay, it's like, it doesn't affect. Yes, it does affect you, you crazy fat cat, because you don't get to go and get an oxygen tank and walk around with your own, air. That's the part that I'll never understand, is like, I'll just pollute everybody and I just won't live there. But eventually, you know what? Jet streams happen, because that's where science comes in, right? Science comes in and says...
You have to believe in science
there's that.
So how long before a GOP lawmaker proposes putting a big dome over, the rich part of the city? Isn't that the Simpsons movie? Didn't that happen?
Absolutely.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, but it's not... I mean, come on. We'll bust that dome down. I saw... What was that movie with... Matt Damon in it, and they went to a whole other planet, and they left Earth, and Earth was like the whole.
They were like, they had a cure
Psyllium,
for cancer up there.
Yeah. Psyllium or something like that. Yeah. No, you cannot run away. You tried it with white flight, It didn't work. We live in Hamilton County now, too.
That was effectively them trying not to breathe the same air.
Yes, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Okay, so one of the fun things I like to do with candidates is I like to ask, like, off-the-wall questions so people can kind of get to know who you are. And I have this little trusty binder.
Well, this ought to be
Yeah. So one of the first questions I like to ask is who, and this doesn't have to be either political or it can be political or non-political. Excuse me. Who is your personal hero?
My mother.
Oh, you didn't even hesitate to take a
No,
break.
no. I had to. No, I already alluded to it.
Yeah,
That's my mother. I told you. I mean, I saw. By watching her fight for every last bit that she got growing up as a single mom in rural Indiana, I learned how to fight. I learned a lot about privilege. I learned a lot about what we can do better as a society for our seniors, and for women, and for families, and for kids, for everybody. And also learned how to not give up.
Right. You can't give up. I mean, you got to keep up the fight. So, what are some of the things that keep you up at night?
Everything at this point, right? So you're immersed in every. I mean, you're running for Congress, and you're immersed in every social problem. Look, I'm a civil rights litigator, so this stuff keeps me up anyway, right? You always wake up with something chewing at the back of your brain, like, all right, how am I going to solve this problem for this guy, this gal, this client that I've got, and what are the ways in which I don't know anybody that's been involved in the kind of work that I have for as long as I have that doesn't shoot up in the middle of the night with some off the wall idea or worry or something like that. And now, trying to take on from a legislative standpoint and try to really figure out what are the practical solutions to all the problems that are going on in my district, and those problems are multifarious, as you know.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at
night. All right. So tell us. Okay, so as a civil rights lawyer, there are an attorney. I'm gonna assume that you've not won every case.
No.
Okay. I'm just gonna make that as
not here in Indiana.
Okay.
And Kentucky.
Okay. So, tell us about that time when you missed the obvious. And how did you deal with the missing of the obvious? And then how did you create?
These are the kind of questions that you got to give somebody in advance if you want a really good answer. I don't know.
Well, this is kind of like I like these questions because it's just kind of nobody's perfect, right? And I think sometimes people who are not familiar with politicians and people who are out there promoting themselves, they put them on a pedestal. And my goal is to say you're a regular guy who wants to serve regular people. I mean, I can tell you a lot of times I miss the obvious because I talk so much sometimes I miss stuff. So I know my flaws, right? I know but tell us about. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Tell us about a case.
I got it. We can
go.
do all kinds.
Go, DC.
There are so many. You have to take slings and arrows when you're a litigator, especially when you're doing civil rights litigation, because you're not going to win, as you say, you're not going to win every single case. The judiciary is stacked against you. The law is stacked against you. I mean, it's just, there's a reason why most of our civil rights lawyers are concentrated over in the Ninth Circuit in California or up in the Northeast, right?
Right.
So we know that there are times which we're going to lose. I think where I still sort of have this naive optimism going into every case, and I've been doing this for a good long time.
Okay.
I still have this naive optimism that just says, like, we should win. We are right, and so we're definitely going to win. And of course, that doesn't always happen.
Right.
One example that comes to mind is, the marriage cases. As we worked on the marriage case that went to the marriage equality case that went to the United States Supreme Court, and we lost. I mean, the national groups like the ACLU and all that stuff were saying the Sixth Circuit is not a good bet for that. Not a good place to do those cases. And it turns out that they were quite right about that because we lost at the Sixth Circuit, and that's the one that went at the Court of Appeals, and that's the one that ultimately went up to the United States Supreme Court. But I remember waiting for that opinion for months, and all these other courts and all over the country are getting their opinions, and everybody's, they're all come down favorable. And I'm thinking, all right, we got this in the bag, and then I'll never forget it on my birthday. In 2014, November 6, 2014.
Okay. Oh, you got a birthday. Okay, November 6th. All right.
2014. I get up and I'm like, all right, this is ridiculous. This has been going on long enough. I'm going to throw this out to the universe and see what comes back. So I posted on my Facebook, sure would like to have a birthday present from the Court of Appeals.
Okay.
And they gave it to me. Boy, they gave it to me. Later on that day, we were sitting in a mediation someplace, and I get this message like, okay, we lost, somehow lost, a case that everybody thought we were going to win at the Sixth Circuit. And, of course, it all turned out great. But we didn't know that's what was going to happen.
Right, and you have your down moments, like I told people on November 9th, 2016, this ain't the end of the world. Sometimes we take a step back, but we got to take a step back to make 2 steps forward to get where we're going. And because y'all lost that one, you went to the appeals in the Supreme Court. My wife and I are legally married. See, so thank you for the work that you did to make sure that I have the opportunity to have the same life that my good old heterosexual folks can have.
Awesome.
Seeing that I pay the same amount of taxes.
Well, it was a long time coming, and I'm sorry you had to wait that long.
No, and you know what? And the thing of it is that I came out in 1990, and so way back then, there was no discussion of us getting married. It wasn't anything that we thought about.
It wasn't even
conceived. And to be really honest, even when the discussion came up, it wasn't necessarily about having the same thing that straight people had as far as the marriage itself. It was the ability to take care of our loved one in the same way. Whatever that looked like. That's why in the beginning the civil unions was like, okay, well, as long as I can go visit you in the hospital, when I know you better than anybody, and as long as this person who ain't seen you in 10 years is coming in and making financial and medical decisions about you, and they don't even know what you want. So initially when it started out, it wasn't, marriage be cool. I just want to make sure that I can take care of my baby. That was it. I mean, literally. And so in 1990, when I came out, marriage wasn't something that we even thought about. So when my wife and I had been together 7 years before we were able to get married, and we even thought, we was like, do we even want to do it? But we had the option. And that was the beautiful part. Every American should have the same options. We're not all going to amass the same wealth or have the same life experiences. But as long as we have the same opportunity to excel, that's what democracy in America is about. Not that I have what you have or I become you. It's that I can be the best me.
Exactly. What we always say is we are about giving people the tools and opportunities they need to live their best lives. I think that is optimal democracy.
Okay, so after you tell me about the defeat and your civil rights attorney in Indiana, where you lose, sometimes, what do you consider job satisfaction?
Oh boy, being able to solve real problems for real people.
Okay.
And there is a high degree of that satisfaction that goes on in the stuff that isn't that high profile, right? Of course, the Supreme Court case is great. The successes that we've had that have been more high profile successes have been great. But just being able to help people, I mean, that is the brass ring of the practice of law. Somebody comes to you and says, I've got a problem. Can you fix it? You look at the situation and say, yeah, I can fix it. I mean, what's better than that?
Right.
What's better than being useful in that way to people in your community?
And then I think, honestly, win or lose, I think that you will be a good public servant because you get it. You get that it's not about self-gratification and self-glorifying yourself and all that. It's about how you can improve the community that you live in. And any politician that's out there right now, and if you don't understand that, get out of the way. Get out of the way. That's just how I feel about it. I mean that. And the 9th District, you are very lucky because you have multiple candidates who are running who understand it's about the community and not about self. So what else should we know about you that people don't know? What's your favorite sports team?
Oh, you're going to get into real controversy. No, I'm not going to talk about that kind of controversial topic. Can we get into decriminalization of marijuana?
You can talk about whatever you want. I was, that was my segue to say, come on, give me what else you got.
Yeah,
Come on, we'll talk about this marijuana thing. I have my opinion about medical marijuana and accessibility and the fact that something comes out of the ground and you can grow it versus some chemical with 14 syllables that I can never pronounce, but you want me to take that. Go ahead. Tell me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so in terms of the medical marijuana piece, there are people who really need it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what we have is a situation now where you've got people that are outside of Indiana. Maybe they leave home for a period of time for whatever reason. They get a prescription for a medicine that works for them very well, right? Maybe it's the only thing that works for them. For a lot of these folks, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And they are a patient in one of 29 states now in the United States. They come back to Indiana and they're a criminal, right? For the same conduct. That's absurd in the United States of America.
Right.
In an egalitarian democracy, that's absurd. Right, and it's one of those things that, you know, again, chases people out of the heartland, and it gives them less of an incentive to be here and stay here in their communities if they have a medicine that they really need. And so I think it's, you know, there's a humanitarian aspect to it. I mean, I represent a guy who's a Vietnam veteran, and he, I mean, you know, as a guy, he's a Trump supporter. He's a very conservative guy. He needs his medical marijuana. He's got PTSD really, really bad. He wakes up every night with nightmares about the stuff that happened to his colleagues over in Vietnam. And the only thing that he's found, he's testified in front of the General Assembly 100 times, and the only thing that works for him is medical marijuana. Right?
Okay.
And he's had doctors tell him, yeah, this is actually what you really need. And this guy is treated like a criminal in his own state. This guy that went through, that had so much sacrifice for his own country. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I mean, just from a that's the humanitarian side of things. From a practical standpoint, I mean, how much revenue can we raise?
So you want to go full-blown legalization versus just medical marijuana?
Oh, I think so.
Recreational too.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think what they call responsible. I think we should head in that direction. You know, we pull the pin on the social grenade and say, all right, let's just make everything a free for all tomorrow. No, it should be taxed. It should be regulated. It should be something that can be a source of revenue. But also, I mean, look at the opioid epidemic in Indiana. This is a big deal everywhere you go. Right, everywhere in my district, and I'm sure here and any place that you've been in the state, they got you running around all over the state.
I love it. I love it.
So every place you go in the heartland right now, is the opioid epidemic is a big deal. When you know that you see a 20% decrease in overdose deaths in states that have medical marijuana.
Wow.
20% decrease.
Interesting.
And you actually see an uptick in
places that do not.
Places that do not.
So, the full-blown marijuana legalization, I'm actually comfortable with it because alcoholism is a whole lot worse than in my opinion, than marijuana use. Right. In my opinion. But there's the other aspect.
Nobody's ever died from marijuana withdrawal.
Or overdose. Right? My concern always is, okay, now once we legalize marijuana, which I think is the direction we should go in, what do we do with all of those people who are incarcerated right now for marijuana, who may still be incarcerated, or they have served their time? I know in Colorado they actually wrote a provision in their laws that said if you were actually convicted of distribution or something that pertained to marijuana, then you're not allowed to be involved in the new industry that's been created. No, seriously, in Colorado, this is what they. Well, if you've already been convicted, sorry, you may be the best, weed person on the planet because you understand strains, you understand, the different products. You're a product expert, but because you did it illegally before, you no longer can tap into this publicly traded industry on Wall Street. How would you want to address, what was illegal? They served their time and they're now out. Would you how would you deal with it? I'll let you just go with that.
That's a gigantic systemic problem, right? Because what we've done with people for 40 plus years now is to just throw them into giant carceral trash cans. People that are addicts, people that are really suffering with very severe health problems. We've all had them in this criminal. We've had them in a criminal justice box for so long that we actually believe that's where they belong, and not in the public health box.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's a major problem, and it's going to take a lot of work to extricate, people's brains from the criminal justice box and put it in the public health box. But it's what we have to do.
Right.
If you look at some place like Portugal that actually treats addiction as a public, they've decriminalized everything.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah, pretty much everything. Right?
Okay.
And they treat it as a public health problem, and their overdose rate is like they have the second fewest overdose deaths in Europe, right?
Okay.
As a result of having and it's because they're treating it like it's a public health problem and not like it's a criminal justice problem.
Right.
And we have to just start working for that. And I mean, it's got to be a strategy that happens. It's got to be a battle that happens on multiple fronts, right?
Right.
You've got to fight it in a lot of different ways. But it's a matter of sort of redirecting us out of the criminal justice stack and into the public health.
And see, I have a buddy on Facebook. His name is Jeff Kidd, and he really is passionate about the opioid epidemic. I have actually, I'm not ready. And the reason why I am not ready is not because it's not a problem. I recognize it is a serious health problem. But I'm still learning to deal with it's a health crisis now, but when black and brown people were addicted to drugs, you was locking us up. So and because it is such a serious issue, I'm not ready, and I'm not ready to deal with it. I don't ever want to do that movement a disservice with my with my input. And so I tried to explain it to Jeff Kidd. And it wasn't that I don't believe what you're saying, but every time somebody brings up opioid addiction to me and I say, but you locked up, black people, it's not going to help, your opioid problem,
the whole root of the war on drugs was essentially a war on black people.
Exactly, black and brown people. And so it's kind of hard for me, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I know Jeff Kidd, if he's watching today, he's going to be happy that somebody brought it up on the show, because he keeps saying, Dana, when are you going to talk about it? I'm not ready. And I don't ever want to take away from work that needs to be done and taken care of
well,
the
but the way,
opioid
think about it this way, and I haven't been asked the question about retroactive application before, and I think that there should be a means by which you can reach back and get those people, rescue them from this carceral hell that they're living.
Absolutely.
In, right? For sure. But the worst thing that we could do is to continue to subjugate,
Absolutely.
to sort of eliminate black bodies
right.
through the criminal justice system
from this
by
industry.
using the same old archaic, outdated, racist drug laws that we've been using for the last
Absolutely.
4 years.
Absolutely.
So I think you got to cauterize the bleeding at some point.
Absolutely. And I think when we deal with, and me personally, I think when you're dealing with the legalization of marijuana, you also have to deal with the mass incarceration that went along with it.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who are going to jail for distribution of marijuana, and you and I have already said, hey, this is not, this is not the same kind of drug as a opioid. This is not the same thing as heroin. And why are we, giving these people, 25 years for a little marijuana? I mean, that's what we got. And I'm with you on the. I really am. I remember going to a discussion at the Noble Centers, and we were supposed to be talking about people with disabilities, but we ended up talking about marijuana because of the effect that marijuana can have on people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. And I remember some of the other candidates who were on the panel, some Libertarians, some Republicans, and some of the Democrats as myself, were hesitant to embrace marijuana legalization. I was there. I'm like, I'm down. And it's not that I'm a user or anything like that. It's just I understand that the positive impact that a natural herb can have versus something that has 14 syllables that you can't pronounce, that it's a chemical that you don't even know where it came from. Right? Yeah. So, I get that. And so I appreciate you even being brave enough to mention it, because especially here in Indiana. But since the Republicans are talking about it now, the Republicans are also talking about having a civil rights bill, a hate crimes bill now. Wow. Can you? Yes. Oh, Brian Bosma, the Speaker of the House.
Into the 20th
oh
century.
My goodness, he said he wanted to have hate crimes bill. He wanted to, and I'm like, are you really? Oh, could it be that you told us we were post-racial, but Charlottesville happened, and you're like, oh crap. there are neo-Nazis. So,
we got to get out front with good policies.
Absolutely.
And not be ashamed of who we are and drag them
right along with us. Well, they're coming because they had some of their skin folk make them look stupid. So just go put it like that. Hey, Dan, our hour's up, man. Can you believe it? Yes. He just gave me the 2-minute right because a good conversation always, never takes long. I thank you so much for driving all the way up from Louisville, on your way back from whatever you were working on, coming up from the 9th District all the way to Indianapolis in the middle of rush hour traffic. It is so important that people get to hear your message and that they understand why you're running and that you're an option. So I really appreciate you coming and Grayson Turn Left. I wish you the best of luck in the primary because it's crowded and you guys got a lot going on. I think it's fun really that there's so many good candidates in the 9th District.
We are sharpening that Democratic tool down there.
Yes, you guys are. Turn some of those red counties blue. Hey, listen, Indiana's own Dana Black, thank you so much for joining Turn Left. I think Dan Cannon did a fantastic job in explaining who he is and what he's about. And, he gave a shout-out saying, moms, boom. I know that'll give him a plus. He's talking about civil rights. That takes care of all the people of color. And he fought for LGBT rights. Did you catch all that? I did. Listen, next week, I got a good one. I got Mary Ann Sullivan coming on from the IPS board. I sure do. We're going to ask her some questions, too, about what's going on with IPS, why people get raises, but they can't afford toilet paper in some of the schools. And she's going to explain some of that to us because she's the superintendent over there. Thank you so much for watching Turn Left. We'll see you next week. Remember, if you have questions, inbox me. We'll get them on. We'll ask the candidates or whoever's here, our guests, what your questions are, but just inbox me. You guys have a great night, and I'll see y'all next week. Peace.